Today I have a really handy sewing technique that you can use. You can come back to this episode when you see this in a pattern that you're going to sew and get something more in depth maybe. A little bit more work than buttonholes, but 10 times prettier. Let's see Rouleau loops. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and in this episode I'm going to show you a standalone episode featuring rouleau loops. Now I have sewn these in some patterns over the years. Every now and then they appear, but they don't have their own little episode. I like having separate episodes for separate techniques because they're easy to find on YouTube. You can go back to them whenever you see this on a pattern, just a little more in depth, a little more detail. Rouleau loops, it is a closure method. You can find it all along the center front of a blouse or a dress. Sometimes you see a single one at the back here, just as a little slit that closes up, just one loop. Most of the time you see it around the front, here on the cuffs at the bottom instead of buttonholes. So if you see this on a pattern, don't shy away from it. Don't think it's terrible. It's actually quite fun. It just takes a little bit longer, but the result is also super nice. Usually these are bias cut strips 1 inch. The length can be depending on how many you need. You can actually get them from scraps left out of your project. If your pattern actually has a pattern piece for it and it's really long, don't prioritize that and put it on your fabric. It can take up a lot of fabric because it's on the bias. I usually leave it towards the end, and if I have to cut several of them, not make a continuous one, I'm okay, and you can get it from scraps. I'm gonna need to cut my rouleau loops in more pieces. I'm still gonna be able to cut bias cut strips like this. Each piece is little. Each loop is supposed to be 2¼ inches long. After we have the piece, we will chop it 2¼ inches each. So I think I might be able to get 3 per strip here. This is my scrap of fabric where I'm gonna get my strips for the loops. Now I have this weird shape here which gives me more space here on the bias. So this is the straight edge. I do have the bias line 45-degree angle on this cutting mat, which is super helpful. So from the corner I drew my first line like that, and then I measured 1 inch and then another inch. So I have 2 strips here. I measured the length of them and they should be enough for the 14 that I need. Remember, each one is going to be so big, 2¼ inch. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them. I just drew these with a pen, and I'm going to use my rotary cutter to trim this away. So there is no pattern piece for this. It's just mentioned in the instructions what to cut. What I'm not going to do is join them to make a continuous one. I don't see the point. I'm just going to make 2 pieces and then cut them. So there we have it. Okay, so there I have 2 pieces. So I have seen the long pattern piece. I just don't generally do that. You can usually get your little pieces from offcuts you have there after you finish cutting your blouse or your dress or whatever you're making. So that's one thing. The other thing, you're going to see them the best if this is a solid fabric. I am not following my own advice here because whenever I've done this, I've used prints. I can see them with my eyes, beautiful. Like in real life, you can see them. It's hard for the image to come across the camera though. So it might be harder for you to see them. But people around you, they'll be able to see them if it's a print, but you can see them 100 times more if it's a solid. The other thing is you want to choose a really lightweight fabric to do this detail. So if it's a blouse, I would keep it 100% rayon, lightweight, silk, crepe, that type of thing. If you want to do this with 100% linen or chambray or something, even any type of cotton, oh my gosh, turning it the other way around is just going to be a lot more difficult. Not impossible, it's just going to be difficult. That's all I'm going to say. So I wouldn't do it. I would choose flowy fabrics if I wanted to do this detail. That's just my opinion right here. If you see this pattern or another pattern, the only thing that might vary is the seam allowance for where you sew this rouleau loop. It's usually sandwiched between center and a facing or something like that. So it might use 3/8, it might use half, it might use 5/8. So the length of the loop might differ. But I just want you to see how to make them, how to put them on, the way I hand base them really firmly in place. I've seen quick videos here and there of people using tape to just secure them and then sew over the tape and then rip the tape, and I can't fathom. I'll rather do the hand basting any day. So the example you're going to see comes from a blouse I've already shown you, the Iman blouse from Cashmerette Patterns. A couple of weeks ago, we had that there. I'm making this own episode here as well because you're going to see another blouse with this detail very soon. So Just having the content here makes me happy because I can refer back to this one. You can come and see how to do it. This is the button guide, what goes behind when these meet up at the center, because the finish here doesn't overlap. It's with button loops, and they're made with this long piece that's cut on the bias. They're cut on the bias, they're an inch. And now what we have to do is take them, put them right sides together lengthwise, and sew them with 1/4 inch seam allowance for both of them. Here are my two pieces. Now I can't even fathom trying to do this with pins because it's so narrow and so slippery. So the hand basting came back in. Every single time I've done loops like this, I have always hand basted it. It's just so much easier. So now we just get these sewn at 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to make my stitch length just a little bit smaller just because we are going to be chopping this into a whole bunch of pieces later. Before we turn these the other way around, we're going to trim the seam allowance smaller. It's going to make turning them right sides out easier as well. Going to be only 1/8 right here, just to have less bulk inside the rouleau loop. I'm going to use a biggish needle with a large opening right there and double thread. I'm going to knot it there. And right here, I'm going to give it a few stitches just to hold it in place here at the end. And then with this side, not the pointy side, with the back side of the needle, I'm going to start threading it through. And because it's a needle, of course, it's going to fit within this tiny little space. Okay, I've come out the other side. And now here, with my seam ripper, I'm going to try to push some of this fabric inside, like this, and to sort of help it along a little bit. It's hard to get it to flip in the first section. I finally got it to go through about that much, and now it feels much smoother. So the first little bit can be a little bit slower. It is a pretty tight squeeze here. These loops are going to be super small, very delicate. And it's just about going slowly. You don't want it to get stuck in there. So I'm not forcing it. I'm that much through. So a buttonhole is easier, maybe. But are they as pretty as this? Absolutely not. They're just buttonholes. Check it out. It finally came out. It's like the birth of the rouleau loop here. Look how small it is. I'm going to figure out what buttons I'm going to use so I can know what length to cut them, because if it's 3/8 buttons, you cut them with 2 inches. If it's 1/2 inch buttons, you cut them with 2 1/4 inches. So I'm going to find my buttons first so that I'm sure. I didn't have a ton of options, but I found these buttons that are 1/2 inch right there. So I'm going to cut these at 2 1/4. I raised my neckline, so that essentially just erases the references that were original to the pattern. So I'm fine with that. I just marked where the first one's going to be. It's 1/2 inch down because there's going to be a facing here. And then if you look at here where the dart tip is, if you go straight across, I have one right there, sort of at the same level. So that's going to be the one at my bust height. I measured this on my pattern and marked it, so I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to have any gaping. So mine are 6 centimeters apart, which is 2 3/8, and I have 7. So all you need to do is fold these like that. The raw edges go against the raw edge of the fabric, right on the marks right there. The mark is going to be right in the middle, and that's where I'm going to hand baste them all in place. It's going to be a little bit tedious. I prefer to hand baste than to just baste by machine because I want this to be right there. The only way I can control these to be right together is with hand basting, so it turns out neat. So that'll take a while, but then I can forget they're there, and then we can just put the facing on top. So imagine there was a line there that marks where the loop is. You get this, you fold it, you keep it together like that, not overlapping it, because some people would overlap it, but that's so bulky. So I want these to end up right next to each other, and you align it right there on the edge. So this is where I had put 2 pins, just so that they can stay together. The line on your pattern would be right in the middle of these two.
So your line would be basically right there in between. So now I'm going to show you what I'm doing to hold these in place so you can really see. So I'm doing it around here because this is the area where I want it to stay together. I don't want to do it right there on the edge because then this is going to open up and we're going to sew with 5/8. So I'm going close to there, about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to bring the thread from the back, take away a pin right here. Then I'm going back in right on the edge of this edge of the loop. And then I'm coming in on the other side, making sure they stay together. And now I'm coming back to catch the other side of the loop. So you can see that now they're really close together there with that stitch. And now I'm going to come out this other side here. And that's how I've basted it in place, keeping these two close together right there. And that's what I'm going to do for all of these. Okay, there they are all hand basted on. You can see all the red thread. It's going to be easy for me to see and remove later, but they're all really nice and fixed in place. And especially at the 1/2 inch where I'm going to sew them, I've basted that together there so it doesn't separate. That's important for me. This button guard, it's just a long rectangle. It's super easy. All we're going to do is fold it like this lengthwise, right sides together, and sew both of the short ends with 5/8 and then flip it to the other side. I'm going to reduce the seam allowance here as usual. And then I'm just going to head to the iron and sort this out. All we need to do is flip it. We're going to put the raw edges together, wrong sides together, press it. And then we're going to do some quick basting there to hold it in place and so it doesn't move around. Check it out, pressed, neat, hand basted. Now when basting is mentioned in the tutorial, it's always basting with a machine, which to me defeats the whole purpose. I like the control that your hands have. I also like that it accomplishes to baste, to hold the layers together. And what I love the most is the ease of removing it afterwards. When you want to remove a basting stitch done with a sewing machine, it's just more cumbersome. And with a delicate fabric like rayon, I don't really like pulling and doing all of that unless it's absolutely necessary. So any basting is with my hands. So that's the button guard done. Okay, there's the other side. Here we have it. That's the guard. Raw edge matches the raw edge of the blouse. And we leave it 1/2 inch down, the same. You need space for the facing. At the bottom, it's not going to go all the way down. We have a 1-inch hem. And this is going to finish a little bit shorter. There's a mark on the blouse to reference that. On the left wearer side, you're going to have this button guard. On the right wearer side, you're going to have the loops. And now it's just about placing the facing on top and finishing the facing like any regular facing. It's just that you're going to have things in between. You're going to be sandwiching loops and button guards in between. Okay, here we have everything extended. I interfaced with white just so that it would be easier to see. Shoulder seams of the facing match the shoulder seams of the blouse. And that's it. It's just a very long stitch going all the way around, being careful with the references, being careful around the curves. I like the hand basting, as you know. I think it's one of the reasons I'm pretty happy with how my facings turn out all the time. Okay, here at the bottom, I've just flipped it to the other side. Pretty easy. This is the side where we have the button guard. So there is the facing and the button guard comes from behind it. Here on the top, we have the V and the button guard coming out right there. On this side, it's different. I've also flipped it here at the bottom. And when we push the facing to the inside, we're going to have our loops. Let me unbutton that so you can see the loop. Check out the little dainty loop facing in there. Button guard covers all of that area and then they just sit next to each other right there. And the loop and the button hold it in place. My bust height right here, I have a button exactly there. They are 6 centimeters apart, 2 3/8, and there's no gaping. I hope this was helpful.
The most important thing about fixing them in place is that you need to fix them together around the seam allowance where you're going to sew them. So from the edge, if it's 1/2 inch around there, I fix them together so that when you actually sew them, the loops are together and they're not separated. There's nothing worse than loops that don't hold the button in place because they've sort of separated on themselves. I can't fathom doing this with pins. If you're able to do it with pins, good for you. I just don't think I could achieve the result that I want, and them being snug and together and not moving out of place. You know, I think the hand basting goes a long way. You know, I film, and that's why you see me doing with another color thread. But if I wasn't filming, I would just choose a matching thread, so that if I wasn't able to remove it all and there's like a little thread of my basting in there, no one's gonna see it. So that's that. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you've done the rouleau loops. Do you have the patience to turn them the other way around with a needle? I have seldom been able to find a safety pin tiny enough to be able to do it with a safety pin. I remember I had one, but I lost it. So it's been the needle ever since, and it works. It's just fiddly, but it's worth it. So yeah, tell me your stories about rouleau loops if you've made them. This is something I would like to hack on a simple pattern. For example, I've got a really favorite woven top that I've made so many times, the Cadence from Love Notions. It's just on the fold on the front. Wouldn't it be cool to hack that, to have rouleau loops down the front, add the button guard, the whole thing? I know exactly how to do it. I have it in my head, and I hope I can get that done soon because I think it would be super cute. They get me excited. They're just so pretty. Thanks for checking out the rouleau loops with me. I will see you very soon on this channel all about sewing. Bye.